Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the West Virginia Archives and History Library. Our lecturer tonight, of course, is Dr. Cubert Smith. Anthony Kinzer is going to say a few words before we get started, but before that, there is some upcoming lectures coming up. If you take a look at our website at wvculture.org/history, you'll see some of the upcoming lectures coming up, so just you can look at them on the right-hand side of our website and enjoy, and we'll see you then.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming out tonight to hear an incredible, outstanding young man, Dr. Cubert Smith, that I've gotten to know quite well over the number of years that he's been associated with our organization, West Virginia Center for African American Art and Culture. And we as an organization, as you have in your hands, have involved ourselves in quite a few endeavors over the years, concentrating our efforts in the block area in Shrewsbury Street. But one particular activity that we have going on is our trolley tour, which takes us throughout the Kanawha Valley into Rand and Malden to learn more about the life and times of Booker T. Washington. Our trolley tour is usually planned around the 1st to mid of August. We're, at this point, unsure we'll run the tour this year. Hopefully we will. But as you'll see in the brochure, our other projects that we have ourselves involved in, the renaming of Lewis Street, the naming of the whole historic district of the block area. But that's where we're concentrated on, because we believe that the majority of the black history in Charleston and the activities that goes on throughout the Garnet graduates before segregation has a deep-rooted history in what we have. And I like to share that with younger generations of kids and people. So as time goes on, and our next 2 speaker series, July 28th, and I finalized it now, August 18th, with Miss Rosa Pickle. August 18th, Miss Rosa Pickle will be here. She has a lot to offer as well, and I hope that we bring out younger people, 2, 3 generations younger than ourselves, that they can absorb what's being said here and endeavor to associate with the people, those speakers who are giving their life in front of you, talking about how they've accomplished what they've accomplished. I think it's outstanding that they want to share their history with us, and the Archives and History staff share their department with us to put on this speaker series. I encourage you that if you have family history, documented records, pictures, anything of the like that you want to donate to the Archives of History, that it can be used to benefit younger generations of people who search the internet, as a matter of fact, and can find those and find it real interesting that we in Charleston, that we in West Virginia have such a deep-rooted history and are willing to share it with everybody else. Consider donating it to the Archives of History. As I've said, Dr. Cubert Smith and I have gone back several years with regards to your organization. He's helped me quite a bit. He's also enlightened me quite a bit. I share and we share some ideas together. I've learned quite a bit. Although I've considered myself not one of his students, but I've learned from him. And as a matter of fact, I learned from you as well. So always in the attitude of learning from somebody, because I've told a lot of people that you know more than me, and that's why I associate myself with you. The organization hasn't grown by me only. It's grown by people who know more than me. the board of directors, Ms. Barbara Lacey, Ms. Chlorine Carter, Dr. Fred Barkey, Tony Lee, Jean Lamb, all of them older than me. All of them know more than me. And that's why I associate myself with them. Learning is the best thing that can happen to anybody. And from you, I learn. And I can share that with everybody else that I come in contact with. That's why the organization is growing like it is. That's why we can do the projects, endeavor to grab others and bring them into our shared histories. That's what the Block Speaker Series does. It's a shared history from a personal perspective. As you can see, the pieces of art Dr. Cubert Smith has done. He'll share that history with you. He'll share where he's gone. He'll share where he's been. And I'm sure that he'll share where he'd like for you to come with him. His family is here. His brother is here. His friends are here. I am not from Charleston, but I came here in the 70s, and I've learned so much. And I've captured so much in my memory banks that I want to continue sharing it with you through the organization, through my association with others. But Dr. Smith is an outstanding young man. His art is capturing. His mind is full of ideas. He shared those with me. His mind is full of avenues that we haven't gone down before. I want him to share that with you tonight. And as we move on through the Block Speaker Series, through the organizational projects, consider our organization as a avenue for you to contribute to. Your time and your talents, as well as your monies. We as an organization can't accomplish anything without the financial support of you and others. So as you look through the organizational brochure, as you look on the website, www.cacwv.org, look at the different things that our group has done and what we want to continue to do. And with your help, we can continue doing that. But what I want to do now is introduce my friend and my colleague, Dr. Cubert Smith.
Sometimes it's things occur on your journey that's bigger than you are. And it's moments like this that we all one day will travel. I feel so fortunate I'm fine. That I'm okay. That this time in my life has arrived. But I hope you understand. I would like to introduce my wife and my daughter. Eve and Malika. And what I would like to do with this presentation this evening is to take you back. I didn't grow up in Charleston. I grew up in a rural village. In the western part of the county, called Mandeville. Some of you may have heard it. Some of you may have traveled through it. It was a community of poor people. Kanawha County was segregated, but in Mandeville, we weren't. Okay. That's where it started. 79 years ago, on a winter day in January, I slipped in through my mother's birth canal and became a human being. And the journey started. One of three. My brother is present this evening, and my sister who is deceased. Randy, I need your assistance. And what I'm going to do is try to bring my journey forward. Okay, thank you. This one here, okay. This was my home in Mandeville, where I spent about 35 years. This is Mrs. Davis, my first art teacher at Garnet High School. I came to Garnet 51, I think it was. She took four of her students to Pittsburgh. That was the first time I was out of the valley. There's only 3 of us left out of that photograph. Oh, I'm sorry. Back, one of my friends and teachers and father, and so many things. I called Bob Hammond, who owned Hammond Glass in Taze Valley. That's where I got the experience to do the glass that you see over here. I'm going back for a second. Oh, here I am. I told you I was one of three. My brother's on the left, my sister's in the center, and that's me on the other side. My brother was 3. Mom had us rather quickly. I was 2, and my sister was about 9 months old. My mom is with me there, and that's my father to the extreme left. And here you will see later on some bronze doors I did for the church in St. Albans. It was one of the oldest black churches in the Kanawha Valley. Okay? And that's my family. What I'm going to do, by being before I was an artist, I was an educator. I educated students in Kanawha Valley. And for everything, every degree that I earned to gain wisdom about art and doing art, I felt it was very important that I learned as much about painting, ceramics, glass. And so what I'm going to do this evening is run through rather quickly, because these slides were taken out of a collection of about 250 pieces of art that I have done in my lifetime. I don't do the art anymore. As you have read, I'm on city council. I had a series of mini strokes. But I promised the people when I ran for council that I would try to speak for the voiceless. And that's what I've tried to do. And the energy that I use to make my art has gone into helping those who can't speak for themselves. So what I want to share with you is some of the art, I think about 60 slides that I pulled out the last 3 months trying to put together this presentation. So I'll do painting first. Some I will know the names. Some is known by the note of force, because I have forgotten all of this in the years that I have done it. What I have here, at the age of 14, there was a gentleman who lived beside us named Mr. Ben. He was very kind to us when my dad was in service. So for my first oil painting set, I sold beer bottles and pop bottles to buy my paints. And that's Mr. Ben, a character of Mr. Ben. At 18, I was at West Virginia State College, and we had a youth group at our church. And so one of our celebrations, I did this 7-foot painting of Christ. And his hands and his face is in cubism of the races of the earth. It's because I have found my art to be, I didn't want to copy nature. I want to take it in, dissect it, put it in my mind and in my soul, that it wasn't something that had been created before, but that had passed through me and another entity was out there. This was done in 1965. It is called The Workers. Mirage. It's not the desert, but a mirage of what the desert could look like. It's about 4 foot square. Birth of man. The birth of man. I studied in Mexico to earn my MFA. And when I descended down San Francisco Street, everything in the land was hungry. The animals, the people. And these were 2 ladies, peasant ladies, sitting in a doorway. And if you look very closely, in between the 2 ladies, you will find a face. The keeper of the ladies. In Mexico, there are a lot of canna lilies. And so this is the morning of the canna lily. Birth of Apollo. Just birth. Just birth. Before Malika was born, she needed something on the walls of her bedroom. So I took life, warmth, love, the unknown, and this was for her. Good morning. Good morning. The darkness is being rolled away and a new day is being born. Mexico was a strange and inspiring and all human kind of feelings there. This is called Three Faces of a Canyon. And the technique is a triptych. There are 3 paintings in one at different times during the day. The night we lost Martin Luther King, and images of Kennedy and Lincoln all were killed with white bullets. Oh, excuse me. inside of a milk pod. Those things that you see along the road that you call weeds. But if you look close enough and with imaginary eyes, there's something living there as it prepares for the death of the plant. Sculpture. This piece was one in the Jared show that used to occur at sunrise. This piece is in the archives of this museum. Some things that you create, you know it came from another place. From another place. It's bigger than you are. I know that there is an opening somewhere in the cosmos where both my mind and soul may soar in a moment achieve oneness. During this time with the other sculpture and this one, I was playing with and studying plexiglass. And the decomposing of space. The plexiglass is there, but you can see through it. Okay? And that is man with a heart, orange head, a hole in the plexiglass, and it goes towards space. Introvert. This is a piece of pine that they gave me one summer at the South Charleston munitions plant, and it is worked real well because I didn't put those rings in that log. It had been here long before I was, you know. Yeah. So you take what you have and you try to create something that speaks volumes of something else. And it will go as far as your imagination will carry you. This is a piece of white marble that's in our yard. It's playing with shape. Because in teaching school, I taught sculpture, I taught painting, I taught ceramics. And so I felt that I had to be ready to be able to answer the questions that a student would want to ask me if that's where he would like or she would like to pursue. It's like I like to share something with you. I took a group of students before I retired to Mexico. And we spent a couple of weeks there. And a young man asked me at one of the seminars before we left, he said, Dr. Smith, what do you think we're going to learn down there? I said, I can't tell you that. Can't tell you that. But I'll tell you one thing. You won't come back the same. You won't come back the same. And what you learn will be determined by how big the bucket of your soul is. How do you see it? What do you feel about it? What are the changes that you will undergo? You won't come back the same. Death mask. In all of our journeys, there are those who will leave us. And the mass is in your mind, your memory. But this is death mask. This piece is in the collection of Mrs. Yes, Mrs. James. This was one of the pieces that was evaluated to be a part of the second World Exhibition in Lagos, Nigeria. African chieftain. This is steel. Another piece of welded steel. This is the one that won first place, I believe in West Virginia. And it's called quixotic vision. You know, Don Quixote's taken from Don Quixote and the windmills of his mind. This is a bronze piece. While driving to Huntington to work on my master's, one of my masters, there was a place on the interstate that erosion occurred all the time because there was a spring on the side of the road. And I saw that, and I saw that, and I looked at that. And one of the pieces that I wanted to add to my thesis in Mexico was hate, brotherhood. My mind is working well. And three more. So for hate, I felt that it does the same thing to us as what is occurring in nature that I'm watching. So I used clay to make the first piece. And I took this piece and put it in a sink in the studio and let it dry. And in the corner of each eye, I let water drip. Took me about 2 months to get what I was looking for. And then all of the dried clay, instead of going back to a solid and pliable, it came off like dust. And it just eroded the face. Portrait of a friend. This piece I gave to Bob Hammond, head of Christ. But the difference in this is walnut. It was about this tall. The spikes of the around his head, like the thorns, are 38.9 metal spikes. Yeah. Bob really liked that. And I said, okay, you can have it, you know. This is a seated figure, I call it. This was done for a friend who had died over at the church in Kanawha City. They were honoring him. And his wife asked me, would I do a piece and honor Bob Everball, wonderful painter. And I met Bob here on the campus grounds when we used to have the rhododendron show, the first ones that we had. And I met Bob, and we became very good friends. So this piece sits, I guess it's about this tall from the table. And it's over at the Village Chapel in Kanawha City. And I donated that to the family of Bob's. Some influences take place. This was, when I asked me to do that, I had spent a month in the studio of Henry Moore in England. Yeah. So it's like not wanting to paint like Picasso, the giant of the 20th century. Henry Moore, leading sculptor in the world for a half a century. Yeah. So their vision, their production influences us when we're not even thinking about it. So this has some of those, Barbara Hepworth in England. If you look at their work, this piece carries some of the characteristics of those folk. Some of you may have seen this. It's at the South Charleston Mound. It's about 30 years old now. And then when they say, don't put artwork out, people will destroy it or deface it. It's been there 30 years and nobody's bothered. And this is called burial attendance. Burial attendance. It's a piece of limestone that's 8 feet tall. Okay, and that summer I carved it on Route 60 and took off out of the 12-ton piece 6 tons of limestone. Yeah. So if you're ever in South Charleston around the mound, it's down there. I've always been fascinated with space. As I did those plastic things. This is welded steel, by the way. It's over 6 feet tall. And all of this, there are certain elements that when we're doing sculpture, it's light, it's mass, it's a combination of things to make it a complete composition. And the thing with this one that I was trying to accomplish was balance. The base here is 4 foot wide, 4 inches wide and 8 inches long. And this whole thing is balanced on that base. And the challenge there was balance. Can I make this work? Now things get bigger. Now that I'm leaving the college, things get larger. This used to sit in front of the Judicial Annex building. Let me see. I think it was called... Justitia, for justice. I think it's Justitia. It's 24 feet tall. Okay. And Nick, you could also call this a architectural sculpture, because you see it in limited ways, because 1/4 of it is against the building. But if you are walking down, and I did this for the centennial of Kanawha County. If you look at it from the front, there's one perspective, and on each side. Okay? What we did, we also did the same thing on the plane on top of the sculpture. It's aluminum. And we put lights, you may be able to see them, here and here. We put these strong lights. And all Justitia is justice. And what happened in the evenings when it was still sitting there, it would show 3 different shadows above the sculpture. And it would go almost to the top of that building. Yeah. For justice meant that to me. Yeah, meant that to me. This is a piece of walnut. Again, it's balance that I'm looking for. That was my challenge. This is at the Kennedy Center in Alabama. Okay. On Washington State College campus, this piece is located. It's made of concrete and aluminum. This was for the 30th anniversary of Brown versus Kansas City. Okay. I was in the first integrated class at West Virginia State College. Okay. And the thinking behind this was that integration cannot be achieved completely. Can't mandate it, because you can't mandate his heart. So on these circles up there, I took 1/3 of the circle out. But if you understand it on another level, you can put the circle in its completion. If you fly to the airport, Sound and Beyond sits at the top of the port as you move to top of the airport as you move towards the to the terminal. This was for Yeager, breaking the sound barrier. And the thing about this piece that was kind of a challenge, the maquette, the model that I made for the commissioners to look at, I torque. Yes. I wanted the plane to look like it was moving. And any place, as you drive around the piece, you never see two pieces. No? And it sits up there it's 21 feet tall. And it was done out of aluminum. It's still up there. It's a beautiful day, and I used aluminum because I did not want the sun to reflect off of the metal. I wanted it to absorb the metal. Okay? Absorb the metal, or the metal absorb the light. So it's up there. Down at Haddad Park, I had the fortunate opportunity to, after retiring from the college, the Melton administration asked me to direct a Sister Cities program with Korolev, Russia. I was in and out of Russia. And so I brought Vladimir, a sculptor from Russia, and we did this. He brought the maquette when he came. We did this in my studio at home, and the college let him stay on campus for a semester, okay, and fed him. And this, I think, was Brotherhood, Unity, I think it is. And so that sits down to Haddad Park now. Okay. To do my dissertation for my doctorate, I went back to my beginning, the second oldest black church in the state of West Virginia, and created something for them to repay, again, a debt. These windows came from Czechoslovakia at the turn of the century. The motifs that are in the upper part, you can see the anvil, not the anvil, anchor. 4 symbols came from the New Testament and 4 from the Old. And with that, I gave to them 4 bronze doors with 2 bronze plates of the motifs that's in those windows. Gave it to them, and with the understanding that they would always be there as long as that was a spiritual edifice. And those are the doors that are on that church in St. Albans. 2 years, a lot of money, a lot of time. We poured these down to Mr. Orange's, that's his name, down to the Kessler Foundry in Huntington. And the day that we poured those, we put all 4 of them, 8 of them, something like that. And one day we lost one, and I came home and carved blue styrofoam to take back down the next morning, and we poured it, and that was done. But each door weighs 225 pounds. There's something interesting about the doors, too. The scrolls, the handles are here as the doors are hanging, are up there as they are hanging. And if you notice, The scrolls are opening, and the perspective gives you the feeling that the doors are getting ready to open. They were getting ready to open. You know, so that was my little secret. Now, one of my degrees is from Marshall, is with a major in ceramics. Okay? This piece, this is one of my latter pieces. It's won the juried show at Sunrise, and it is in the private collection of the museum. The interesting thing, I carved these African heads, and then I made a mold, and then I pressed those out in the clay and then attached them to these pieces. And that's where I went the latter part of my career and after my career. I think this one over here has some of those same things. Let's see, what else I have here? I got to go quickly. That's another piece. Clay and wood. I don't put any glaze on my pieces. I didn't when I was working. All of these are smoked. It's a technique used by the Indians, Hopi Indians out west. And a friend of mine who studied at Howard worked with some Nigerian women who fired their pieces the same way. Like this. Some more of those heads. Now that pot is about this tall. And it wasn't turned on a wheel, but it was handmade, paddled out and put together and that kind of thing. That piece is sitting over there, Carnival Chow. A fellow over in Williamstown owns this piece. I had a show over in Charlestown, and that's 24, that's blank, and 24 karat gold leaf decoration on that, you know. Some more of those back pots. This is a drum pot. Sold some of these to some of the percussion people in town. This is Bob Hammond, my dear, dear friend. These are some of the glass. These are not named. Glass is a thing that you try to capture before it dies. When you come out of the furnace at 2,000 degrees, you need to capture. The reason I love the glass, the spontaneity is so freeing. It's incredibly freeing. This piece is over there. The difference between sunlight and daylight. This was done in the daylight. That was done in the studio light. So glass does different things, you know. And if you add a little bit of imagination to them, things change. You know? All of these have been sold except this one. This is my collection for the house. This is my wife's paperweight. This belongs to a family that was dear friends of ours in England, and they both are deceased. I believed that inside of the glass something special lives. So what I did in experimenting with this is that a piece of glass, like one on the photograph back there, I would photograph with my camera about 1/4 of an inch inside of the clay, after looking at it and trying to find a composition that would go with that. Then I photographed it and went to the computer over to the architectural place down here on Virginia Street. Virginia Street? Yeah. And they put it on their computer and made these prints for me. Yeah. And this is what the glass, it shows depth, you know. It picked up the gold flakes that I put in the other one, which I barely could see, you know. So that's how those came about. There is another one of those prints. So I only did about 25 of those. I only have about 3 left. This one is the tall glass back there. And this is where I live. That's my studio. And studio is called Trey's Lonnie. Lawn of trees. That's where I live with my family and our dogs. And that's it. If you have, I didn't mean to take all of your evening. But if you have a question.
Dr. Smith, as you were doing these large pieces, the large architectural sculptures and things, did you have helpers that helped you? I can't imagine something 24 foot high. That would be really difficult to move or anything.
Most of the things, Vladimir was the only person who ever worked with me. I couldn't afford to hire anybody, and I couldn't pay the liability. So most of those large objects I laid down, you know, and I had some construction people who had cranes, and they would drive up, because if you drive through the cemetery, you can go to the top of the cemetery, and you can drop down in my studio. So they would come. It's like moving them to location. Let me share a story with you. I had done all the carving. Fred Hayes, a former student, worked with me because I got a grant to pay him. The city of South Charleston did. He was the only one to work with me. And we had finalized the shaping, the cleaning, and Mrs. Rockefeller had agreed to come down that Saturday and unveil the sculpture, you know. And they had decided, the 3 ladies who were working with me for the city, Rob had assigned them to work with me, and on the logistics, huh? And we had done all of that, and Sharon had agreed to uncover the sculpture and all this stuff, you know. And we did the piece outside in front of the Spring Hill Fire Station. And we built a canopy over this thing, you know, because we could work anytime. And it took, because I had never tried or attempted anything of that size and that much of that kind of material. And we'd clean it up, and the Stone people, Huffman brothers, came up to put it on this flatbed truck and drive it up to the mound where it was going to be put. And when we got, it worked fine going up. And when we got up to the mound, the fellows didn't tighten the chokers that was put around it. And the guy raised the crane and raised the piece up. And it got about that far off of this metal bed truck, and it tilted over and fell on this truck. Yeah. I thought, oh my God, you know. So, and all here were they really, you know, Miss Smith, I'm sorry. I didn't tighten it. I said, I know. I said, but what did you do to it? You know. So we finally got it up. Took off all this styrofoam and stuff, blanket that we had put on, and there wasn't any major things wrong with it. But I had to go down the next morning and because there was all kind of grease on these belts, and redo it, refinish it for a 1 o'clock unveiling. Yeah, that's how kind of things you run into, but that's how that was, you know. No, but that was about the hardest piece I did, you know, because limestone has no grain. They are millions, as maybe like the guy, I can't think of his name now, billions and billions of little seashells, you know. And it has no grain. It's different from marble and granite, you know. It's more like sandstone, but not as soft as sandstone, you know. But, yeah, and the piece I did at the college, I taught a class, and the students, so, you know, I got about 5 or 6 students, they wanted to help me do that. You know, so that was a summer, but yeah, it's all been kind of a journey. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
When you were developing your skills, who did you look to as for influence and appreciation that you wanted to?
I didn't want to be like anybody. This was, I think like I was mentioning before, I was an educator. And my education background grew me to who I am, you know. I loved Van Gogh. There are people in history, you know. One summer, even I spent a month in Ireland, not Ireland, in Italy. You know, it was nice getting this close to the David, you know. So, yeah. Yes, sir.
Are the paintings that you had in the beginning, are those online somewhere to be viewed, or
No.
anyone's somewhere to be seen, or
No.
in your private collection? Okay.
Yeah. They're gone.
I know that limestone is not material that you want to work with because of the softness, but has anyone ever done anything Anything else with limestone?
That's what that big one in South
No,
Charleston.
I didn't mean limestone, I meant
Marble?
this real soft,
Soapstone? Not as I know of. It's good to do little marquesa because you can carve it, you know. But
there's no great pieces.
no, not as I know of. No.
Did you have a particular favorite material to work in with stone and things? You mentioned limestone and things like that. Was there a favorite as far as like granite or marble or?
No, I think it's hard to get people to buy and pay for bronze, you know. Marble is unless you're using Carrara marble, that is softer than the marble that we produce here in America, you know. But I think, being very honest, it's all about the idea. Some ideas find themselves in a home in two-dimensional, and some find home in three-dimensional. And that's the thing about teaching. You have to understand that. And you can't make clay look like marble. You know? There are a lot of things that's out here. Someone would ask me, would you rather paint in acrylics, watercolor, or oils? It all depends on what the piece is, you know. Yes, sir.
What is your take on Mount Rushmore?
The subject or
Any parts of it?
I think it was a masterful execution. Yeah. It goes back to these things again. Some things are bigger than you are. You know? And what do I say about my work? To be very honest, somebody else will have to evaluate that. I gave it what I had, when I could, with the knowledge I had. Yeah. I don't have any particular material or method. You know, I look for the next challenge. The next challenge. Yeah.
Did your vision come first and then you choose the medium or the material that you use? Or do you see a particular piece of material and the vision just comes as you begin to work with it?
The idea comes before the material. You know? The idea comes first. But I again, it goes back to where I was a teacher, is that I was teaching technique, you know, and I felt that I had a tremendous obligation to give the students as much about technique as that I could absorb, you know. And I can say, I never put my hand on any student's work. You know, I respected them as people. If I could tell them something about strengthening the composition, I would do that. And they could try it. you know. But you don't have all the answers to that. Mm-mm. Yes, sir.
Dr. Smith, one last question.
Yeah.
What do you have in progress right now?
Nothing.
Oh.
No, it's the many strokes that I have had has taken away some of those abilities. You know? If I was working on glass, I didn't have there wasn't a place for a slip, because this close to me, the glass was 2,000 degrees. You know, I miss it. You know, but we have no control over to the market, you know, and the people I serve now, as been a council person, has filled part of that void, you know. Yeah, part of the void. But I'll never not miss it. Because that's what I did for 50-some years. Yeah, but that's where I am. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Did you work on the Kristen McAuliffe statue that is now on Sunrise?
Yeah, we collected all those pennies. Collected all those pennies. But I was a part of that thing too. Mm-hmm. Well, it's been wonderful being and spending this time with you, and I deeply and profoundly appreciate your interest in part of my journey. It's not all of it, you know. But again, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, man.
There are many people around Charleston that inspire me. You're some of them. One other person, she's gone now, is L.A. Rodkin. I've had the experience of being around her for a few years before she passed on. And she affectionately called me her own names. It wasn't Anthony. And she was a really inspiring woman, and I really appreciated being around her. Cubert Smith is another one of those people that inspire you. We never know what people have gone through to accomplish what they've accomplished, unless they tell us. The outcome for us to see is what they want, not telling you what they had to go through. His artwork is proof enough that he's had to endure quite a bit to give us what we have. I appreciate him being here tonight, revealing to us his journey. We're on one ourselves. I'm on one with you. You continue to help me to get there. But what I want you to do is bring some younger people here in their 50s, in their 40s, in their 30s. Because what we are putting forth now, they can absorb and understand. And what we reveal to them now, they can reveal to someone else later on and teach them what they're being taught. You can't learn anything by yourself. You learn from somebody else. They will learn from us. Let's teach them. Bring them in. Governor Tomlin has graciously been a part of our block speaker series over the last couple of years. And he regularly, through one of his people, of course, issues a certificate to us to show his appreciation through the state of what we're doing. This room we have, the environment that we have, the wonderful certificate that's going to be presented to Dr. Cubert Smith by his daughter is another example of that. And what I'd like for you to do, I'd like you to come here and read that to us.
Whereas Dr. Cubert Smith grew up in St. Albans, West Virginia, graduated from Garnet High School, West Virginia University, and Marshall University. And whereas Dr. Cubert Smith holds a Master of Fine Arts from the University of Guanajuato in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, a Doctor of Philosophy from Union Graduate School in Yellow Springs, Ohio, and did post-doctoral work at Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And whereas one of Dr. Cubert Smith's sculptures was selected to represent the United States in the second Black World Arts Festival in Nigeria, and has various sculptures located within and around the Kanawha Valley, which include Haddad Riverfront Park, South Charleston Mound, Yeager Airport, West Virginia State University, and the bronze plaques on the doors at St. Paul Baptist Church in St. Albans. And whereas Dr. Cubert Smith was selected as West Virginia's nominee to attend the American Academy in Rome and named an outstanding West Virginian by Governor Rockefeller, and also recognized as Ambassador of the Arts for West Virginia by Secretary of State A. James Manchin. And whereas Dr. Cubert Smith taught in Kanawha County schools and at West Virginia State University, served as director of the Charleston-Korolev Sister City Program, and is serving his third term on the Charleston City Council. And whereas Dr. Cubert Smith is a devoted husband to his wife and a loving father to his daughter, and whereas Dr. Cubert Smith is an outstanding individual with exceptional talent and a remarkable West Virginian. Now, therefore, I, Earl Ray Tomlin, Governor of the great state of West Virginia, do hereby bestow upon Dr. Cubert Smith this certificate of recognition.
Thank you, Malika. And you see there's some words I couldn't have said either. So I appreciate your being here ready to pronounce those words for me. Dr. Smith, again, thank you very much. Now, next month, folks, come out next month. Bring some younger people out. And it'll be inspiring, too. The one-armed bandit, Gary Mays, will be here. And it's not just a nickname. He does have one arm. But he's an outstanding individual who didn't let his handicap of one arm restrict him from being who he was. He did everything anybody else did whenever he was told to by his parents, his basketball coach, and his baseball coach. And he owns his own business, too. That goes to show that no matter what your handicap is, you're not restricted to accomplishing anything that you want to. And again, August 18th, Miss Rosa Pickle. She's an outstanding woman, too, and she'll speak French to you when she's up here as well. And I can't say French, but she can talk it just like that. And you know she can. So, again, thank you all for being here tonight, coming and enjoying our block speaker series. Follow the organization. Support us in any way you can. And again, bring some 50 euros here next month. Thank you.